Hey guys, Bix Weir, RoadToRoad.com. I want to talk about how we got here. And how we got here, meaning that how we are so dependent upon the banks and fiat money and our government. What happened? What happened to America such that we gave up that power, the power to control our own money? We should have known. Absolutely, we should have known. But something happened in 1913 with the creation of the Federal Reserve System that Woodrow Wilson signed the Federal Reserve Act, a president that was absolutely anti-bank. But he was scared. He was scared into doing it because of a specific reason. And that reason has been the reason we are in this situation today. Many generations have kicked the can down the road, and it's time for it to stop. If we don't stop it, we're going to lose our country. So let's talk about what happened. And what I'm going to do right now is just read an article. And this article is from the New York Times on June 19th, 1912. And it was this information of what happened, what was discovered in the United States that changed our world completely and allowed these bankers to take over and allowed all the information that came after it was all about controlling the monetary system, making sure that the people weren't subjected to the volatility of a gold-backed system that might have been destroyed back in the early 1900s, and what that would have done to society. And now we have to deal with, okay, what's going to happen when the fiat system gets destroyed? What's going to happen when we don't bail out the bankers and everything gets destroyed that we worked for so hard? Somebody's got to suck up the pain. And so that's where we are. And this is the article. Right there. Tell of vast riches in the Grand Canyon. And those of you who have been following me for a while know this story, but probably never heard the entire article, never listened to it, never thought about it. This comes directly from the New York Times archives. That's the original. It's really small, so I had to blow it up so I can read it. I'm going to read you the article. And think about, at the time in the United States, there was about 30 million ounces that were circulating of gold, circulating in the United States, monetary and within the government, 30 million ounces. And then in the whole world, there was about 120 million ounces, and then of circulating gold, I think it was, and then another 130 or so of central bank gold. So it's not a lot, hundreds of millions of ounces. Say 200 to 300 million ounces in the world at the time this article came out. And just imagine if you were in the White House and you're Woodrow Wilson, and then you hear about some just absolutely monstrous gold find in the Grand Canyon. It would have destroyed the monetary system, the global monetary system. I'm going to read you this article, and I didn't just read this article and say, yes, it is a fact that that's what happened. That's true. I did the research. And when you do the research, you find all kinds of things going on in the Grand Canyon, in that specific area, from phony plane crashes to no-go zone. You can't fly your drones there. You name it, it can't be done in the Grand Canyon now. And they say you're not allowed to go in any caves in the Grand Canyon because they say, oh, it's too dangerous. Over 90% of the caves in the Grand Canyon have never been explored because you're not allowed to go there. And since when did the government have that kind of power? They had it ever since this discovery. And I'm going to read it to you right now. Again, Tale of Vast Riches in the Grand Canyon. This is from, the date is June 19th, 1912. Tell of vast riches in the Grand Canyon. Men engaged in gold dredging operations expect to astound the world. Have overcome obstacles. Steamboat placed in the Great Chasm. Large capital only can extract gold from the silt. And this article comes out of Salt Lake City, Utah, June 18th. Much attention is being given among men interested in mines in this region to the development of gold deposits in the Grand Canyon of the Colorado. For several years, operations have been carried on quietly by concerns largely financed out of Chicago. That's why Chicago is the commodity hub of the United States. And there has been much amusement among older miners who did not believe that the canyon would yield anything worthwhile. Now, however, reports are coming out that the region which out of the region, which indicate that it may figure largely in the production of gold within the near future. Large operations are already underway, and it is understood that much more capital is to be furnished to increase the plants that have been established. The development of the Colorado River gold deposits follows as a result of the perfection in recent years of the process of extraction of small quantities of the metal from the riverbeds and dumps that have formerly been worked. Many large companies have been formed in recent years to conduct dredging operations on a large scale, and profits from their gold operations in some of the abandoned gold fields in the region have been large. One of these concerns is the American Placer Company, financed in Chicago, which acted on reports of various explorers of the Grand Canyon who had found indications of good values in gold in large bodies of silt in the chasm. This concern took its station at Lee's Ferry, Arizona. This is a desolate place where John D. Lee, who was executed as the leader of the Mountain Meadow Massacre by the Mormons, took his refuge for some time. It is at this point where the Colorado emerges from the sandhills through which it has burrowed its way for more than 150 miles and begins to cut its way into the Marble Canyon, not coming to the plain level again until it reaches the border of California. The Chicago concern has great obstacles to overcome, and this is true. The place where this is located, it's really at the confluence of the Colorado River and the Little Colorado River. It is almost inaccessible today without a helicopter or going down the Colorado River. Imagine what it was like back in 1912 or 1908 or 1909 when this gold was discovered. But here's a really interesting quote. Let's see. Lee's Ferry is separated a desert from the railroads in Arizona, and by more than a desert by mountains of the same sort of communication in Utah. It is of this section that legend has it that a traveler by wagon once remarked, quote, "I don't want to be disrespectful to God, but I think I'd have taken part of that seventh day and finished this place up." The problem of getting supplies was a large one, but by the expenditure of large sums of money, most difficulties have been overcome. For the treatment of the gold-bearing silt, a large dredge was carried across the desert in sections and installed. That means by wagon and horse and then donkey to bring it in. Incredible. Next came the problem of getting coal to operate it. A good vein was found in Cottonwood Canyon 20 miles above the ferry, but in order to reach the mine, a road 80 miles long had to be built in and around the gorges leading to the river. The hauling proved expensive, and so the concern had a steamboat of 50 tons and two 100-ton barges built in San Francisco, sent by train and wagon and set up. These now operate between the mine and the dredge. Other improvements have been installed, and slowly a settlement is growing up in a place that had been appropriated by cattle concerns with the idea that they could always monopolize it by controlling a few watering places. A railroad will probably be built from the north or south to the ferry within the next few years. And this actually did not happen. The ferry was built, the steamship was built, the barges were built, but the railroad was never built because Woodrow Wilson, upon signing the Federal Reserve Act, shut down the Grand Canyon, and all these people who spent all this money had to be removed. F.D. Wilson, who has been conducting operations for the Chicago concern, has come out of Lee's Ferry to report to his principals and make further arrangements to carry on the work. He declares, now listen to this, he declares that when the whole field has been developed, the supply of gold in the world will have been increased by billions. Let me read that again. He declares that when the whole field has been developed, the supply of gold in the world will have increased by billions. This is a time when there was only 200 million ounces in the world, in the entire world. And he's saying this is going to increase the amount of gold by billions. And here's a quote. "I know that it will be difficult to comprehend that I have a correct comprehension of the wealth that is buried in the banks of the Colorado Canyon," he says, "but I can demonstrate every statement I make to be absolutely true, and that my chief shortcoming is an inability to comprehend the vastness of riches that lie along the great stream. At Lee's Ferry are mountainous deposits of marl silts that contain the wealth. Surmounting these is a sort of capstone formation that contains equal values. These harder formations, however, are a little more difficult treatment. Underneath the stony cap is the softer silt that practically melts like sugar under the hydraulic treatment. Experimentation and tests, and repeated and rechecked 1,000 times over, have demonstrated conclusively that the soft silt contains 50 cents per yard in gold, with a little silver and, strange as it may sound, considerable quicksilver. Now listen to this. Exposed to sight are billions of yards of this silt, containing more billions of dollars in wealth of precious metal than the human mind can possibly grasp in computation. Let me read that again. Exposed to sight are billions of yards of silt, containing more billions of dollars in wealth of precious metal than the human mind can possibly grasp in computation. For 2 years, we've been experimenting on methods of extracting and saving the gold and other metals. The effective plan has been worked out, and that district is about to come into the mining world of activity in a startling fashion. I don't wish to be understood as meaning that it is going to be a proper place for the poor prospector, for it will be nothing of the kind. It is a place for strong companies and no others. A great deal of money must be expended on proper equipment, food. Food can be obtained only by men who have big wagon freight trains to transport it, and to centers of activity. Only companies financially able to conduct large operations can cope with the situation, and the poor man would starve to death trying to get a foothold. Up the Colorado River, 150 miles, there's another great outcropping of the silt, which is being developed by a concern largely financed out of this city and Denver. This extends for more than 18 miles. Then it dips down and has been traced only once more before the deposits at least is again found. It is believed that other deposits can be tapped in Marble Canyon if that is ever made accessible. Now here's the deal. So Woodrow Wilson is sitting there, and you got the bankers wanting to take over, and you got the people screaming about the bankers. He gets put in office, and he got put in office on the anti-banker stance. They find this massive amount of gold in the Grand Canyon, billions and billions and billions of ounces, and more billions of ounces up the stream. What does he do? He gets talked into signing the Federal Reserve Act. Absolutely. Why? Because adding billions and billions of ounces of gold in a monetary system that is controlled and run and completely dependent upon gold in the early 1900s would have destroyed the monetary system. Much like when the Deutsche Bank goes down, and that destroys the monetary system today because of their derivative book. So what did Woodrow Wilson do? And the people at the time, Congress especially, they let it happen. They said, okay, we're not going to pull this gold out. We're going to lock it up for future use. And we're going to let the bankers create their unbacked fiat monetary system and see how long they can run with it. And then at some point in the future, we'll slowly mine this gold or get it out of there, and we will live off that as our monetary system. In the meanwhile, we're going to use everybody's natural resources and create these dollars out of thin air, which is what they've been doing and what we've been doing. I mean, anytime we find a natural resource in the ground, we lock it up in a military base or a natural wildlife preserve. Dianne Feinstein, 41% of California is in federal government lands. That's all about hiding the natural resources, especially the gold and silver. So where do we go from here? I don't know. Somebody's got to go through the pain of destroying the old system and rebooting and starting a new system. They didn't want to do it. Woodrow Wilson didn't want to do it in the early 1900s, so they decided not to, and they kicked the can. That's why banker bailouts happen every single time. The question is, this time, is it going to happen? Is it going to be allowed to happen? Again, are we going to bite the bullet and destroy the old system? God knows everybody, the vast majority of humanity, would love it because they're in debt. And when you destroy the old system, that debt goes away. And it's just washed clean by the hand of a god, the derivative god, the weapon of mass financial destruction. So that's where we stand, and we're on the brink of that. What will happen? There's a scenario that says all banks just freeze up. And what happens when there is no money? The United States has been planning on this for over 100 years. There have been plans, how are we going to do it? And that plan has changed many times, from the NESRA Act to gold-backed to the Bretton Woods system. Some of these plans have been enacted and some have not. But the ultimate plan would be go back to a gold standard. And then we started thinking about it in 2008. That was an attempt to take out the bankers, but the people still wouldn't let it happen. People are just so brainwashed these days. So now there's a crypto option. So we'll see what happens the next banking crash. I think the gold option and the crypto option. The key is, though, the big key is to end the manipulation of markets, which means every market has to shut down, even the crypto markets, because they're all massively manipulated with computers and derivatives. That's what Root A is. It's a computer programming term invented by Alan Greenspan in the 1960s. He was the world's best computer programmer. Yes, I do think he was involved in the creation of Bitcoin. Absolutely. That was his job. The head of the Fed was control the markets with computers. That's what they did. And in Dick Allgire's remote viewing of Satoshi, one of the people was an exact lookalike of Alan Greenspan. It is all true. The Road to Root stuff is absolutely true. And if you don't believe the front page of the New York Times, if you don't believe this, you shouldn't believe it. That's why you do due diligence. That's why you go around and find out what is the other proof. Was there a steamship built in that area that it would still be there? And it is still there. And they called it a National Submerged Monument in the 1990s. And spent all his money and there was just a little bit of it left. And they're very, very, very protective of that area. So it is all happening. We are about to go through another decision point where we either decide to continue with the old system, save the banks, rejigger the system, do something like the Nessra Act or the Iraqi dinar or all the other plans to revalue the system, or we can do what we should do, which is destroy the old system and start fresh, start new. Because if you revalue everything, you got deciders deciding who gets what and why. And good luck getting the population behind that. Anyway, this is Bix Weir with my daily rant at roadtoruta.com. Make sure you give me a thumbs up and join the Road to Ruta. Put your email in, and you'll get free email updates on this crazy battle to take our country back, to take our monetary system back, and to move safely into the future. I'll talk to you guys later.